Welcome back. Today I had a different video planned, ready to go, and then I got this response to one of my older videos about the ego and how this whole thing about killing the ego is false. It's a misunderstanding. It was so poignant, it was so relevant that I really wanted to share it with you. This video helped me a little, so thank you for that. I've been feeling incredibly depressed and lost, even though, according to spiritual teachers, you can never be lost, because I can't comprehend living without a sense of self. I know it's the right, in parentheses, right way to go about living, but it depresses me to no end to think that it's all just one thing and that nothing essentially matters. All the struggle I've overcome in my life and work I've put into myself feels so insignificant because I'm basically just an illusion. I'm only 18, but living the rest of my life seems so pointless and meaningless. And the irony of my situation is that I've turned toward spiritual teaching to find meaning. I've already made it through 2 long years of existential depression, and you and everyone else that's spiritual says non duality is apparently blissful. So maybe one day I'll be able to come to terms with the truth. So, obviously, very poignant, very meaningful, and definitely something that needs to be addressed. And along with a host of other misunderstandings in meditation. First off, right off the bat, the right hippocampus is the land of the non dual state. It's the place that the Buddhists are pointing at, and it's the place of meaning. So if you're in a practice, if you're using a tool, okay, so thinking of yourself as an illusion, thinking of your life as a dream, that's a tool. And if it's not giving you more meaning, then it's not directing you in the correct direction. It's a useless tool for you at this point. Maybe you'll pick it up later and you'll learn how to use that tool correctly. But if you're using a tool and it's causing more distress and more discomfort and more confusion, well, then it's leading you to the left brain. It's not leading you to the correct brain. It's not leading you into the correct area of mental practice. It's leading you away from it. And therefore, it's not a good tool for you. This is why, for so long, spiritual traditions have said you have to have somebody guiding you. That's why, because these kind of mistakes happen, and you got to have somebody there to say, whatever you're doing, it's not working, stop it, and go do something else. So that's why. But you can also figure it out. You can understand that it's not working for you. Therefore, drop it. It is not a good practice for you. All right? It's very common sense. It's very straightforward, and you can figure this stuff out. If it's leading you away from that deep state of meaning, well, then obviously it's a wrong tool for you. Go and use something else. There's so many tools. Go and use a different tool. This leads to a talk that I had with a student of mine, and he explained to me that there's a cult of meditation which has formed on the internet, and they're very oriented to one practice, and anything that deviates from their practice, they're very negative. And so they get a lot of people that come onto different websites and they say, well, this happened in my meditation. Well, I saw spiritual light in my meditation. And he said, when they say, I saw light, they all go, no, no, no. Get away from the light, forget the light, just concentrate on the non dual state. No thought, void. That's it. And people say, my breathing has slowed down into this very subtle rate. And they all go, no, no, no. You have to stay with the breath. Now, that's a huge misunderstanding, right? That's what the fourth phase of breath training is for. You got to understand those core fundamentals of breath. That's a huge misunderstanding. And some people say, I get inspiration in meditation. I want to write it down. And they all go, no, 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 no. That's a mistake. You've got to stay away from that. Just concentrate on the void. Just concentrate on the non-dual state. There's some truth there. But if you only negate everything that's happening in your meditation, you're not getting the benefit of your meditation and you're not absorbing it. And this is a huge problem you're setting yourself up for. So I would like to clear some of this up if I possibly can. So what I'd like to show is that this entire spiritual experiment is a sort of journey from the left brain into the right brain. And so I've split the brains apart so we can really look at the journey in between the two hemispheres and what it means from going from the left into the right. Let's talk a little bit about the left brain and the left hippocampus. We know that it is the storehouse of words and labels. So when you think of the word tree and you see the image resides in the right brain. It holds all of our images and therefore all of the meaning of life. The left brain holds the label, TREE. So words, lists. It's a very practical side, and it takes the world apart piece by piece. The right brain sees the world as a whole. So imagine that you go into a beautiful park and you see a sunset. You take in the whole sunset at once, and it's gorgeous. And that aperture of your eye, taking in everything at once, that is the right brain. And then you begin to look at piece and piece and piece and piece, and that's the action of the left brain. It's the same thing with a work of art. You look at the whole of the art first, the poem. You take the whole poem in at once. And then you break it up with your left brain. And as you do, the meaning automatically recedes. You can try this out. Start picking apart your favorite poem, and you'll notice that the meaning begins to recede. And as you embrace the poem as a whole, that is the right brain, where the meaning is, all right? And that's where we're going in meditation, into meaning, all right? So as we begin our journey, we're very associated in our Western world with the left brain. This is very practical for us. And with it, we have a lot of conscious thoughts spinning in our heads. List, 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 as the bard said, word, words, words. What do you read, sir? Words, words, words. And as we begin to recede, so we start practicing heart rate variability, resonance, and we get less thoughts. Why is that? Because we are receding from the center that holds words. And as we keep going, we may encounter spiritual light. Now, I have a theory about this. This is just my theory, all right? The right brain controls images. It holds all of them. Therefore, it also holds light, because to see an image, you have to have light. So that light, it casts a bit of a shadow, or you're seeing a piece of the right brain as you travel towards it. And that's why there's spiritual light somewhere in this journey from the left to the right brain. Now, somewhere in here, we start encountering our deeper subconscious thoughts. So you get away from the pure conscious thoughts, and somewhere along the line, you start to encounter some subconscious thoughts. Very normal. It may surprise you. They're kind of dreamlike. And you still kind of have to concentrate towards what you're looking for, which is the right brain, the non-dual state. And so you go back to your heart rate variability, resonant breathing, and you just simply bypass all of those subconscious thoughts. And along with those thoughts will often come answers to your questions. So we've been living in this left brain, which is bound by linear thinking. It thinks one thing at a time. The right brain does not. It sees the whole, and it has all of these images. And we've been told an image is worth 1,000 words. So what if you have 1,000 images come to your awareness at once? It will give you profound meaning and will instantly answer questions you might have. And so what we have here is higher self download. And what's happening now is there's a conversation coming from the right brain into the left brain. And the left brain, after meditation, may absorb that understanding and then ask another question, and the right brain may answer again. And this is quite profound. All right, we'll come back to that. Finally, we get into this very deep state and we become absorbed by the right brain. There are actually 4 different kinds of sensations that you might feel as you enter into absorption. And what's happening is you're coming out of the processes of the left brain. And so there's a feeling that's associated with that as you become absorbed by the right brain. And this is the story of Jonah and the whale. Jonah is swallowed by the whale. And that is you in meditation, being swallowed by the right hippocampus of the brain. And this is where the non-dual state resides in a samadhi. So if you imagine that instead of looking at the divine light or seeing the divine light over there, that all of a sudden you are one with it. Of course, that is a non-dual state, isn't it? You have become one with it. Therefore, you are non-dual. And this gives you profound meaning, and it reorients your mind. And so we got to put something here. All of this is a grand conversation. We're coming from the left, going into the right. And the right is giving us answers that come back into the left. And you see what I'm drawing here, don't you? This is the conversation that is happening between the 2 hemispheres of the brain. And there's a word for this. But the point is, this is the process of communication. It's an infinite process of communication. It started here with the higher self download, right? And it went into absorption and into samadhi. But even here, we come out of samadhi and the conversation continues because of that depth. And we have more to say to the left brain, and the left brain responds. It reorganizes itself and sends more questions into the right brain. And now, as Ian McGilchrist tells us, we have a conversation between the master and the servant. So I hope that made some sense. That is the grand progression that we are moving into as we move into the right brain. And so when you see the light, it's a good thing. You don't want to become wholly preoccupied with light. That would be a side path. By the way, you can do the Om technique. I have a video on my channel called Om Technique that will help you to see the light if that's something that you would like to do. But if you don't see light, don't worry about it. Do the heart rate variability, resonant breathing. That's the important thing. And the Om Japa in the chakras. Very, very helpful to this entire process. That's what's really important. But when you see the light, great, it's wonderful. You don't need to ignore it. You can use it as another tool in your toolbox. Go into it and expand into that light, like coming into a beautiful, deep room. And when it comes to inspiration, that's a natural process of meditation. You want to train your meditation so that you don't get inspiration throughout your entire meditation. You want to start going towards the non-dual state, of course, if that's where you're headed, if that's what you came to meditation for. If you came to meditation for inspiration, this is the perfect place to write it down. If you came for the non-dual state, well then you need to tell yourself, unconscious mind, thank you so much for giving me this inspiration. Please remind me of this inspiration as I step out of my meditation. And when you create that kind of a habit, what will happen is that you'll go into the non-dual state And then as you come out of absorption, out of those deep states, boom, the inspiration will come there instead. So that's where I get most of my downloads. Doesn't always happen there, but most of my downloads come as I'm coming out. And it's because I trained my mind to do that. I had a conversation with my deeper self and I explained this is how I would like to set it up. Now, sometimes there's going to be something that is really inspiring, deeply meaning for you and your psychology, and you're going to want to write it down no matter what. So go ahead and write it down, because if you don't, you're going to sit there and you're going to think about it and go, oh my God, I hope I don't forget this. So of course, go and write it down. That's okay. It's going to benefit you. That's why it came to you. So it does have value. And of course, when you enter into the tranquil breath, as your breath rate slows down, this is a very deep state, and that's going to help you go into the non-dual state. In fact, it's very difficult to go into the non-dual state without it. That's why yogis practice yoga. That's why we follow the breath in the first place. So of course, if you don't get that, you got to see the fourth phase of breath training, okay, on Meditative Mellows, because I explain it very, very easily. And I don't know anywhere else that anybody is actually teaching the tranquil breath. So it's very important information, and you got to understand what you're doing with the breath. Because if you say that the breath slows down and you shouldn't follow that, you don't understand why you're following the breath. I'm sorry, you don't. You just don't, okay? You got to understand that, because otherwise you're going to follow the breath forever. You'll never stop. There's a progression that you're going through in following the breath, and that's what I explain, all right? And finally, you saw that figure 8 cycle, this wonderful communication between the left brain and the right brain. There's a name for that Jung use, enantiodramia, and that is the tendency for things to turn into their opposites. And so you see that in the yin-yang symbol, and you see it in the infinity symbol, and you can see it at play here between the left brain and the right brain. So the left brain begins in one state, goes into the non-dual state, comes out and has more information, begins to reformat. And you can't live a life without a left brain. You may think that I'm traveling along and I don't have an ego at all. But that's not true, because if you didn't have an ego, you simply could not function. So you have to have something there. There's a little something there all the time. No matter how deep you are, you're still using your left brain. It's still functioning. And so we all have this. And this idea that you're going to just kill it. You're trying to kill something inside of yourself. And the subconscious mind goes, no, my whole purpose is to keep you alive and create more meaning. And so if you have an idea that you need to kill the ego, well, you're going against yourself, aren't you? The very root of your programming is survivability, and you're going against that, and you're causing conflict. And more conflict is not a spiritual thing, all right? We might need to face ourselves, but we don't need to engender extra conflict. It's just not necessary. So I want to introduce this idea of the figure 8 to you, that there's a left brain, there is a right brain, and the two are coming together beautifully. You're just this wonderful thing that has been created, right? And we are learning to use all of it. So we don't look at a sunset and go, oh yeah, that's a nice sunset, yeah. Well, then we're just in our left brain, aren't we? Instead, we can look at the sunset and go, oh my God, right? And now we're really taking it all in. We're using our right brain as well. And so that should happen more and more. And we should encounter more and more meaning in our lives and in ourselves as well. So stay away from this idea that you're killing the ego, especially if it's causing you depression. By the way, if you have depression, go look at my timeline therapy videos and follow along. Just imagine that it's you in the chair and follow along. Use your own answers and do the timeline therapy with the video. I'll have more of those that you can follow along with as well. So I hope that you love this. I hope it was deeply useful in your understanding of the process of meditation. If it was, be sure to hit that bell down below, and I will see you